Okay, let's get started, huh? What's up with that $? Streamlabs $, visit and talk to us. Let's see here. Okay, all the streaming tools are working. I'm going to start off with the JsInterop little demo portion today. This came up in Gitter the other day. Somebody was pointing out this formatter tool that Rocco had written a while ago, or had shared a while ago, and somebody was asking, hey, how do we actually put this to work in a GWT project? How do you make sure you get all this style stuff formatted using the underlying APIs of Chrome's debugger, which apparently you can tap into just by saying, hey, window DevTool formatters, here's a formatter I'd like you to have. And I guess there's multiple pieces you might put in here. The JSON formatter here is a class that's defined here. So it's a JavaScript class with a couple of functions on it that get some work done for you. But those are things that are exposed to DevTool formatters itself, and Chrome will call them. So it's the Chrome DevTool formatter framework lets it call you to say, hey, how do I format this thing here? And there's a spec for it. Last updated was in 2016, so quite a long time ago. Anyway, some names you may or may not recognize from their contributions in other parts of the GWT and JavaScript world. There's a couple examples of people who have built it. I guess there's some cool ones for Three.js, or rather, it's probably going to build Three.js. Anyway, that could be fun to look at. So it talks about the API and what kinds of things it looks for and how it expects to invoke these. What do I do for a one-liner for this object? Can it be expanded to show more detail? And what should the body be after it is opened? And then I guess we've got a format here to say, hey, if you put a tag here and you put a style object here and child elements, it will unwrap it to produce some actual DOM elements in the debugger. And then they give some examples and say, here's how that would end up looking. And say, okay, we could have, let's see, this is the sample object we've got here, before and after the debugger is working, or the custom formatter. And then there's this custom GLIT one, which is not the same as Rocco's exactly. I'm not sure what the difference here is. It may be that there's some not really sure. Oh, it looks like that. Well, I've got a bunch of individual ones here. There's a little tag, it looks like, to say, hey, here's the kinds of formatting we're going to do. Here's how you format these different kinds of fields. And that's pretty close. So I wonder if this is a fork. Anyway, we're going to take a little inspiration from this. We're going to try and hack together our own version of this, but we're not going to write any JavaScript to do it. My goal here is to keep our project entirely in plain old JsInterop, because I don't think JsInterop was really even a thing when this was coming out. Let's just see what that gives us when JsInterop first came around. No, right about the same time. The first draft will be 2016. Yeah. So this, I guess, predates it by a couple of months, but this is the last update. I'm not sure if we got a history here to see when the first draft came out. Anyway, so we're going to go through here and try to collect what the API actually is, and then provide a couple of classes in here, and then we're going to try and use it in, first of all, GWT, and then second of all, we're going to see if it'll work in a Jackal project. I have a feeling that everything's just going to be fine. Jackal may require a little bit of monkeying around with externs or something like that, which is a general long-term plan we have anyway. How do we get those externs to behave properly? I would be curious if Clojure already has externs for these types. You know, Google being Google, I easily could imagine left-hand, right-hand problems there. The important thing, if you try this out before you dig into any one of these examples, first of all, I'm not even sure if these examples are any good anymore. Let's Looks like it did get updated recently, so let's see if we got an example page. And then we're going to have to... you can't just run on the web page? Well, we'll see if we can make our own that does this. It seems like you should be able to host just from GitHub IO with this. Nope. I haven't actually gone through the examples yet, if you can't tell. Closure script. All right, so we're at least using some of this stuff. Well, all right. Maybe we can tidy that up as we go. So to begin with, I made just a simple GWT or a simple Java project. There's no source in it at all yet. We're going to need to add dependencies on JsInterop. Presumably, we're going to need to add dependencies for Elemental 4 at least, and probably JsInterop base. But let's go one step at a time here. Let's just start with these things here, do a quick refresh to see if it figured out what we're talking about, and then we'll make some new classes here for debugging. And for the time being, I'm putting this in com Vertispan, but if this ends up being something we actually publish, we'll probably publish it under Vertispan. We may eventually say it should be an org GWT project thing. As far as I'm aware, only Chrome supports this. Firefox doesn't have any APIs for this, so we're going to call it Chrome Dev Tools. Let's start there with just object formatter. We'll make an interface. When the feature is enabled, DevTools looks for 3 special functions in the tab being debugged. So window DevTool formatter should have instances that have header, has body, and body. Let's see. Let's make this interface have a couple of members on it. Header will return a single-line summary of the object or null. So does that mean a string, or does that mean it can return an object of some kind? Header will return to JSON-ML. Is JSON-ML something that the browser provides? No, I guess it's part of our APIs in here. JSON-ML. What is ML supposed to mean? What am I missing? Like debugger, like custom object, something log. JSON-ML is an array. Markup language, JSON markup language. Is that what this is? Probably. So we'll make a type for it. But here we have it as an array with a tag name. Yeah, JSON-ML. Okay, here it is. JSON-ML is apparently a standard. Oh, there's a website for it. Well, if there's a website, it's a standard. What's going on here? Is this pretty popular these days, or was it ever? I mean, jQuery supports it. Nobody else? All right. It's probably dead. So we probably want some kind of a builder for that, because it's a homogeneous array, or sorry, heterogeneous array, because you've got strings, objects, and children. So we're going to want some kind of a Java array for that. Let's eventually we'd want to have a different type suggestion. IntelliJ created a new Scratch file with the content of the upstream JS. Hey, that's a good idea. Scratch file from JavaScript. Right. And then let's make this just a little more readable. Whoops, I meant. We still got this Google Doc to worry about, and anything else we run into. Put that right there for right now. I'm not going to go over all the nitty-gritty details here. There will be some things to talk about. Anybody know why Gradle doesn't support Java DSL? I mean, it sure can. The problem is you have to turn your .java files into class files, and the class files need to do all the right things. I actually have a project where we write some of our own plugin stuff and project stuff, and it all gets built in Java. And actually, your Groovy, when you hit static compile at the top of a class, compiles it to Java, the way it was meant to be, and then it compiles that to bytecode. And that static compilation gives it some compile time errors instead of waiting for runtime to blow up like some of those other languages like JavaScript. But I don't know specifically why they don't support it out of the box. Probably it was deemed a little too verbose at the time. I'm guessing if you do it today, you could probably have added it, but I don't know. Anyway, Gradle's not my favorite thing. Groovy is definitely not my favorite thing. Kotlin is interesting, but I just have never really gotten the hang of it. I've never had the need to say, hey, what if I did everything I'm doing today, but in another language? Okay, so let's try making a different package here for JSONML. That's going to eventually produce JS arrays. Well, you're wrong, Justin. Functionally, this is going to return arrays, right? That's what this thing said here. Let's make it a class to begin with. And yes, you can add that. Oop, I meant to make it in its own package. Right, please move to package. There we go. And maybe we even move it to its own jar eventually if it turns out that JSON-ML is going to be a real thing someday, but it doesn't really look like it so far. It's proper JSON. The string is the first element, so a tag is sort of a string plus attributes, all in one big map, plus an element list. So there's 1, 2, or more than 2 elements. If you don't have attributes, can you just jump ahead to elements? Must serialize attributes before any element. Okay, so what happens if you have no attributes? Did you just set an empty object? How convenient. Every single thing in here has a class of some kind set on it. So we don't know what the spec should do there. All right, you all are jerks. Okay, so let's just make some static helpers for this, like public static. We'll make a type called JSON-ML at some point, which will really be a JS array. But I just want to give a good Java API here. There's only certain elements we can use anyway, according to the custom objects formatter spec in DevTools. Not seeing the point of this. Oh, did I not get that far? Sorry. So you can build then formatters that in your debug tools show, hey, here's the structure of whatever this is. Yep, so you can dump it directly, but if you get a map or something, then you got to know, well, is it a map of strings or is it a map with objects as its keys? You know, in IntelliJ, it allows you to peek into the hash table when you're debugging and say, okay, well, here's the key and therefore here's the value. But you can also just say, look, just display it as a map. And then it just says key value, key value, key value very easily. If we look at the example that was already built here, there's a lot of really gross JsInterop stuff happening. Not JsInterop, sorry. This is super dev mode stuff, where this $, this G$ is meant to say, hey, here's how you need to keep track of what the class is going to be. But this might change if you were to redefine class. I mean, nobody's going to ever redefine object.getClass, but whatever. There's some checks then to say, okay, if you're a set, here's how I'm going to format you. I'm going to figure out what your size is. I'm going to figure out what kinds of contents I guess you have. I don't really see how that compound name is going to work. As children, and then render the children, and it's rendering those as, here's its name and here's its value. It gives it an index, which is weird because a set doesn't really have an index. Maybe it's useful to look at it. I think we're going to probably debug in IntelliJ and kind of see what it has and probably try to key off of that. For a map, then, it's got this entry formatter, and each entry is, hey, it's got a key and it's got a value. Let's see, how do they actually do this? And then they just draw a little arrow. So I guess it's a string? I don't really think I want a string. I think I want to have the actual object be expandable. But this is something we can get to. Oh, I see. This is the preview for the really quick and dirty what the preview is. And then when you expand it, it will show you the actual structure of the key, because it could be a composite key. And then a value there. Yeah, it's using collection set from map. Say, if you've got a map, let's just treat it as a set instead. That way you can do all your operations directly there. Gwit just says, hey, why bother implementing set? We've already got map. We can just do it that way. And I think the JVM does that for at least some of its collections. Anyway, there's other things too, like array list. You really don't need some of those extra fields it comes with. You just want to have the array. You don't need an array list, which is an object that holds an array, then the array has the contents in it. We just need to have the array list has the contents in it. There's no need to know, hey, this array list has a hash code. Thanks. Super helpful. Map formatter. Okay, so this is how it's figuring this out. But there's a lot of these that are specific to, let's check the compound key, the compound name, and if it equals hash map, so if you got a subclass of hash map, it's just going to break. So there's some hacky bits we can work around here. It's going to take a little while to translate all this, but if we can get the basic idea, that'll at least be a starting point, and maybe even offer the ability for projects to add their own pieces here. So the first thing we got to do, though, is build up this, hey, how do we actually render things? Then we can do some ugly, half-assed rendering of, hey, at least it draws something, and go from there. Yeah, well, I'm thinking we can build instance of and just straight up say, hey, if you're an instance of map, I know how to iterate maps almost always, no matter what your map is, whether it's a linked hash map or a hash map or a tree map or whatever, you're just going to want to say key value, because structurally that's what's going on there. We might have some special cases, and we should offer some way to register handlers for special cases. Okay, we only have a couple of types here. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see the full list. So I'm going to make just custom handlers for this. We're going to do element, which will take a string. No, we're going to do builder element. Hey, that's not how we write Java. String tag name. We'll worry about that in a minute. Public static JSON ML builder. And then let's make one of these for each of these. So we got div, which is going to just return all right, let's see. We got div span OLLI table TRTD. No T-body? Really? There's no T-body? How do you make a table without a T-body in it? Who do you piss off if you make a table without a T-body in it? Is it Justin? I think it's Justin. OL. I mean, that's so old school, it's not even in school anymore. I think any table that was valid, not have T-bodies, can drink by now. Maybe we can get clever later on to say, let's make these, a table only takes TRs, a TR only takes TDs. HTML4, how about XML, XHTML? I'm guessing it predates that. Let's see, T-body. First introduced in intro. Oh my god. All right, INTRODUCED. Try that. Yeah, I know what it is. How far back do we go here? Firefox 1.0 supported it fully. I don't know. I think it's pretty old. Edge 12? Do they not have IE anymore in here? Oh, that's handy. Firefox 1.0 had full support for it. So what did Firefox 1.0 handle? Or when was it released? Oh, there's a version history page just for this. 2004. So basically, as of 2004, you should have been using T-bodies. And in 2004, Let's see here. November 9th, 2004. I wonder if it actually said what version of HTML it supported. I don't see anything specifically saying specific HTML version. SVG support didn't show up until 1.5. Uh, 3.5 supported HTML5. So yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying that Firefox 1.0 in 2004 supported this, so it's been, what, 18 years? Okay, maybe you can't quite drink yet. What says 2006? I'm looking at here where February 4th it was renamed to Firefox. Firefox 1.0 was released on November 9th, 2004. The 2006 you saw might have been for HTML5. 2009 is HTML5. So my point is it definitely predates that. All right, let's get the browser out of the way. Get a little code. Just a second. I just broke the browser momentarily, so I need to fix that. Okay, so we're going to need to add some attributes. I think we're going to say this object here itself is actually an array. But we need to lie a little bit and say it's not. So I don't know if we have an actual JSON ML type. Oh, okay. So can I use say it didn't work in Firefox 1? Need to get this back going again. So we got elements. We're going to need attributes in the next field. So I guess we should make like a private inner type that actually represents all this. Oh, it only has a range from 2. Okay. MDN says 1 and beyond. So I was going with that. All right, we're going to get a pop-up over here that's going to bug us in a minute. Let's use our JS type here and say that your name is array. Yeah, thank you. That's not really what I need right now. Go back over there. And namespace is JS package dot hi JS package. There we go. Dot global. Because this is actually going to be a window object. JSON ML is going to be a window object. We probably can just remove the word builder. We'll do it later though. We're going to have some private methods. These are all going to be overlay methods because these are only for Java. They don't actually exist on the underlying JavaScript. Of course, this is just how are we going to mangle them and get our Java type safety over what is, at the end of the day, just a... Why are you not moving? Over what is, at the end of the day, just a JavaScript array of mushed up stuff. So we're going to say an element. Let's make a constructor here. What's the array constructor supposed to be? My window go. 6. We'll close that entirely. Here we are. We don't have array in here yet, so let's just look at MDN real quick for array. And what the constructor should be. So we can do from, which will make that work, or of, with a variable number of arguments. We're only ever going to want 2 arguments to start off with. So we're just going to do an of with string and object. I don't think we have an actual constructor for it here. Here real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough if you just have JsInterop on your class path, but I don't have that right now. So we're going to say that we have a no, it's a JS factory, so it's a JS method, but it's going to be private static native JSON mail builder of string name object attributes, which cannot be null. We're just going to put a semicolon there. So this looks close enough to the underlying JavaScript array.of with varargs, because it behaves like varargs, that we can just use that. So now we can say return return of tag name, comma. Then we got to put an object here now. So JS property map dot of. Yeah, okay, that'll work. So now we got a property map. We can read and write attributes from there. And then let's chain on some stuff like style. Just make some easy stuff and just generally attributes. So public, what do we got here? JS property map. We can put anything in there, I think. So we'll just bound it at object. Actually, I think we're going to want to set these. So we're going to say JSON ML builder attr string key object value, because these could be objects. I guess that the styles are assumed to be an object, or is that just a big string? How did that look here? Style is, oh no, it's a big string. Okay, that's handy. We can just say it's strings, because you can't nest other junk in there. Child objects can be substituted in a template using an object reference, which works sort of like a template variable. So this must not be the same thing as this. A child can be another element, a string, or an object reference. Oh, so we can actually put whole objects inside of there. That's a little weird. Okay. We'll get there. So we'll just take object for right now, and then we'll take a style builder. And I guess we'll just put the whole style in there at once. I'm not going to worry about any real builder for this just yet. We're going to want to say return this, because it's just the same array we're going to mutate. And then we're going to get the property map, which is the first element. The 0th element is the tag name. The first element is the property map, and then modify it. So it's going to be get. How do we want to phrase this? Because we got to write this in terms of Java. All right, we're going to make these JS overlays. And this one is a JS method. Private native, I guess TT get. How do we do the JS array like to get things? Oh, it uses internal JS utils to grab this. And so this, just for those who haven't dug into the implementation here, this is where things get weird, where it says, okay, now we got to write some real JavaScript, unless you're using Jackal, in which case we've got this other magical method that we'll use instead, which is implemented in plain JavaScript. Right, JS internal. Right, they don't package it, because why would anyone want to use Jackal with Maven? You jerks. Okay, so we're going to have to defer to JS internal utils, which is, of course, not public. So we have to cast ourselves to a JS array-like, and then manipulate it that way. Okay, we can do that instead. That's fine. As array like this dot get at 1, and that's going to be our attributes. Attributes are going to be, let's say, JS property map object. We'll reduce all this later on. Just going to have IntelliJ write some code for me. Let's see, let's like that. And then set key value. Okay, and then we return this. Okay, so now we can do return attr style. And so we've just replaced that style string with something else. And then we need an append child. And now we're again going to do this array-like thing. And we're going to say push. We do a regular array. Do we actually get push? I want push. JS as array. Oh, as a Java array. Icky. I want it to be an actual JS array. Okay, so let's get JS array on the class path. That's going to be elemental. Elemental core. Okay. Maven needs a kick to the head to figure it out. And then, do we have a... It hasn't found JS array yet, huh? Nope. Core, elemental, core, JS array. Okay. I guess we just are going to need some kind of a cast where we just say cast this to JS array. Why can't I autocomplete in JS array? What's going on here? There. Shut up and let me do what I want. Okay, this is going to be an array of objects because we don't really know what the structure is. And then we're going to push all of the children at once. And that will put them in order and then return this. Okay, so that's easy enough. I think that's probably enough to do the kinds of examples they had there. Let's take a quick look at how this was structuring things. So it's creating a JSON ML element, which is a span. So we, in our parlance, it would just be JSON ML of span or dot span. Ooh, they got a create child. Does that seem helpful? Is that like create and append? What's create child gonna do? It's just gonna go ahead and push it. It's hard to build or chain that because you got to keep a reference to it to modify it. Create text child. I think we're just going to make an append for that. Because then we can just say, hey, just put the string in here. So instead of append child, let's just make it append because that's closer to the Java script version anyway. And we'll make this varargs too, because why not? And then we're going to do the same thing. Just push those children down. Except now we've got type safety as we go. I think that's enough. Do we need to actually do anything to deliberately create a text node? No, you just push it. It takes a text, and it's already turning into a string. So it's turned into a string, and then it's damn well turned into a string. Make sure that string is definitely a string. Crap you don't have to put up with in typed languages. TypeScript even would have figured this out. If you'd passed a non-string in here, TypeScript would have just slapped you and said, no, don't do that. But this is written in pure JavaScript. ES3 even. This should probably be attached to window anyway. It's a little weird, but whatever. Okay, let's make these marked with JS overlay. Okay. Now we've got something kind of resembling a type. I'm going to get rid of builder off of this because we're just always doing builders. We'll just call it JSON-ML or JSON markup. We'll just call it that. All right, so now we've got that. We can go back to our original object formatter and say, what is the structure supposed to be of an object formatter? The document says there's 3 methods we need to implement. There it is. We need something that returns a header, which will return, I guess, an object. So I've got JSON markup header that takes an object and a config. You can specify a config attribute in the object tag and assign it to an arbitrary object. This will be passed here as a second parameter. All right, so we're just going to say that's a config, and that is not right now as prop. We're going to think about that later. Okay, so now we got that. We've got a Boolean. It's so handy that we've got bool there. So Boolean as body of object. I'm guessing we'll put some generics in here for these objects just to say, hey, here's the thing you expect you're handling. Someone else has already done your type checking for you. But first, let's do the JsInterop bits. Object config. And then we can now render a body, which will be render the expanded version of this object to be displayed after it's opened. Okay. So that's again JSON markup, body, object config. Let's mark this as a JS interface. So we just say it's a type because it's already an interface. There's no such thing as interfaces in JavaScript. So we're just saying, hey, if anybody implements this, they should really kind of pay attention to this kind of format. So this is a general thing that the browser will already give us automatically if you're Chrome. And because we've got arrays here, we don't need any new types to handle this junk. And I guess we can nest more stuff in here and just put what exactly? Once you're at this point, it's just new objects. So I guess we need some way to append whole objects into there to say, hey, just handle this recursively. You're gonna want a bigger example of that. Here's an OL with no attributes. Okay, so this is handy. They show us, actually. Let's make that bigger. Here's an OL with no attributes, and it has a bunch of LIs. And the LIs are no attributes, and then the text world, and then they actually put the whole object into there. That's self-reference. Where did self-reference come from? It's from here, which is an object with the attribute object. So it's like it's itself again. This must be the example here. There is no object field here, though, unless it's just saying, I render this as... It seems to imply there should be an object field there, so I don't quite get what's happening there. Anyway, we need DevTool formatters, so we need something that'll magically take a bunch of formatters and register them. So let's make a register function. It's an overlay. And this will take, I guess we could register each one individually, because then you can just append more stuff. I don't really know if the browser is going to handle that well, adding new ones later on. So let's not do that just yet. Let's start instead with just object formatter, formatters. It's going to be a void method. And it's going to do, let's pull up the JavaScript here and just show the very tail end of it, how that's implemented. At the end of the file, please. There we go. So it's just going to say, hey, grab the window object, whatever that happens to be, create this new property on it, and set it equal to an array of stuff in it. So odds are we'll just have the one, but we might actually have a bunch of them. We'll get there in a minute. So this is going to do js.asPropertyMap of DOM global. No, we don't have DOM yet. All right, we're going to go grab DOM. What's your problem here? There we go. Global window. And then we're just going to do for now a set of DevTool formatters equals JsArray.of. Actually, we can just pass formatters. It's already an array. That should work. So now we've got a quick register function, so we can build our own and register them. We can't re-register more later on, so let's just put a little to-do for ourselves. And then let's also put a to-do for make this easy to disable. So for example, we could do if system.getProperty super dev mode equals true, then register it. Otherwise, don't even register it. Now, sometimes you're going to want to debug in production, so this is probably not very effective. So instead, we'd want to have a new property, which reads from super dev mode and uses that to assign this. Something like debugger formatter is enabled, and formatter is enabled's default is super dev mode or something like that. So, because we want to compile all this out automatically. If we can do that, if you can make this thing actually not do anything with its objects, then those objects themselves will get garbage collected, which means the classes will get cleaned up on the way into the compiler, and you'll get a smaller output in general. So we can just, each one of these can register. Okay, let's take a look at how this first one worked. It was its own constructor here that takes some other formatter, a much simpler formatter apparently. It has the requisite header, has body and body, and then it's going to go through and do some work by looping through and building stuff and appending styles as it goes. I guess we can't have CSS classes very easily, so that makes sense that we have to do that all in here. We have this helper internal type for elements to say, here's how we add attributes, here's how we create text, and then turn it into the underlying object. We don't even build a prototype for this because the compiler is going to automatically turn all of our methods, even the non-static ones, into static methods, and just return the same array each time. And then we've got a GWT simple formatter, which I think is what the default constructor at the bottom did. Yeah, we just made this GWT simple formatter. And we said, now here's the different formatters I want you to handle. So I think we want to go a different direction here and say each of these should be top-level formatters, but with an abstract superclass to keep track of them. So the GWT simple formatter has a preview, and it doesn't obviously forward it. Let's see, it just says if it's undefined, then it's undefined. If it's a number, then it's a number. If it's a string, it's a string. If it's a false, then it's a null. That's probably not what they meant, but thank goodness for JavaScript. And then we iterate through each one, and if it accepts it, then we preview it. So that is kind of a question I have about this original one. Can you render this? If not, then don't try. So I guess if a formatter can't render it, it just is sort of stuck rendering it. You have to implement a header. So how do you handle an array of these things? I mean, this takes an array, right? What if you pass more than one? Is it going to call header on each one? Does the spec say you can return null or null? If null has been returned, the default format will be used. Okay, so how do you have like 4 of them and have the first 3 return null and the next one get to do something? It's an array, but it only ever has one element. Why not just check for null? The templates are parsed in... Okay, so there's just something in there instead of Chrome to say how they're parsed. That could be interesting to look at later. Where is that property that we were setting again? No, come on. You're a jerk. I think Chrome just... Or Firefox just crashed on me again. Yeah, it's stuck. All right. One moment, please. All right, that's coming back up. We're gonna have one pop up over here that's gonna bother us like that. Out of my way. So yeah, we can probably just do a can you accept this, and if not, just start rendering things. We'll figure that out in a little bit. Okay, so the GWT simple formatter says I've got all these formats. I will iterate through them to see if something can accept them, and if not, we'll return null. So it'd be nice to test this with more than one of these, since obviously somebody thinks they're going to want to have more than one there. Here's our document that we wanted to look at to begin with. Once it's up. Has children will just be iterate through and find it, because you got to test each object to say each time you got to test. You can't reuse it. And I guess you want to make sure that the more specific ones are registered earlier, because otherwise, if you have two things that return true, like if object formatter returns true and map formatter returns true, because a map is an object, then the object formatter is going to win. So in this list, we probably have map object being the very last thing, just to say, okay, if everything else fails, we'll just go for this, just rendered as a plain object of some kind. And let's see, it's going to say, if you have a class, then you must be an object. We can preview you as just your own class. I would have put toString in here, but whatever. And then has children if you have any keys, and then we'll iterate through those keys and try to build each one. So keys won't cover methods because those are attached to prototype, and it won't also cover default fields. That'll unfortunately get lost too, but whatever. Then there's this thing here for create property preview that will take a key and a value and just give you a tuple. Okay, that's kind of verbose, just to say name colon key value colon value, but whatever. I think it'd actually be shorter if you just did it that way. But anyway, unless it's called from more than one place. And then try to cut key is never called. Oh, it is. It's right here. It's just commented out. So this is probably for detailed. We can drag that down a little bit in size. Okay. Let's put this there. Get things back the way they belong. Okay, so let's try implementing for now the same API as before. Oh, and let's look at one of these examples, like the let's say the array formatter. So it's going to say, are you an array? How can I tell if you're an array? If you're instance of array and you are a Java class. So how generically in Java do you tell if it's an array? We could just instance of each of the array types. That'll work. Preview is the compound type, whatever that's going to be. Component type's compound name with an array thingy after it. But in our case, we can just call get class to name or something, or get name. Has children is if it's non-zero, and then I guess we just loop through each one and say, it's odd that they did it this way with the inline object here, name and value, but whatever. We'll say the name is the number, and the value is whatever that is. Okay, so all of these things here, like children, return just these object structures, and children gets called by the loop up here for the simple formatter. And once we get that, we loop through, at least this actual JSON ML formatter. It says, okay, I've got an object of some kind. I'm going to make a li in an ol. So I guess they're numbered. Is that what they suggest over here? I wouldn't have numbered them unless they're arrays if it were me. I kind of want to not do that and just make everybody write HTML. Yeah. Okay. So let's make everybody write HTML. We'll do that for this one. We're going to say GWT object formatter just to participate. with a extra accept method. And wait for IntelliJ to decide I can type again. There we go. Let's make it abstract. And add one more method here. What did they call it? Preview? No, it wasn't preview. It was... yeah. Accept. Let's call it can render. I guess we'll pass the config in here since I don't know what the config is for yet. And then I think we want to actually go another step here and say, let's make this generic on T. We don't know what T is going to be. T is going to be something based on... actually, this will still be object because we have to do an instance of check here. I was going to say T should confine those other calls here, those object format things, but I guess that's not going to work now because I can't constrain these. Maybe we can just put a T in here and just say by default you're going to be an object. Oops. But that won't work either because we can't default to having these things return null. All right, let's put it back. And not implement this thing here. Unless it takes a bunch of handler things. All right, let's keep following the existing format for now. I do want to have the implementation things decide how to render, like with indexes or whatnot, but we'll get there. So good object formatter is going to be generic on T, and then it's going to have a header and a body. And has children. So let's just do a simple implementation of this first before we glue the rest of it together. Let's just do a impl.array that will be difficult. Array is actually one of the harder ones, interestingly, because of all the different array types. So we could make a new one for int array and double array, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think instead we're just going to say, well, this one's tricky, so we're not going to worry about it. So let's just try this for the time being and say if O instance of object return true. That's some curly braces. And I guess we add each of the other ones to it. So we got object, char, byte, float, double, int, long, short. What did I forget? Boolean. Int, short, and long. Any other primitives that we need to handle here? Otherwise, we'll return false. And the header is going to be, so we now know it's a Java object of some kind. So we can say object get class dot, how do you get the component type? Hey, like that. Get component type. And we'll put a length in it too. So we'll say append component type toString plus array size equal. Now this is tricky because we need an array helper tool to get us the size of that array. We don't know what kind of an array it is, or length really. So let's just cast it to array-like, because all GUID arrays are actually JavaScript arrays. Okay, and then we have a header which has children. And then body is now when we're going to have to render the whole array. So let's look at how the array format originally worked. It would say if it has children, if it has a length. But that just, I can't remember, is that going to be not null? What does this return if you pass it as 0? Not of 0. What is not of 0 in JavaScript? False. Not of 1? True. Okay, so this just says does not equal 0 in this case. Browsers, I love you so much. Okay, so now we want to say make an array and just push each item into there. We're going to want this to be an ordered list. Do we want to skip empty items and just jump over them? I don't think so. I think our first version doesn't need to do that. So we want to iterate through here and add a new item to each one. Let's first start by creating a OL. That way we can number them automatically. Any attributes we want to set on here? I think we'll be fine. OL. And then I think array-like will give us some handy bits here. So we can say like for I in that dot get length. And then append. So now we can just append the object directly. I think we're just going to append the contents instead of worrying about giving it a new entry. Let me just see what this children function, how it would have been called. See if it actually reads each child. Child value is object, then we do something. We only, if not, we read the name and put it, either way we put it in li, so we end up duplicating that number. That's weird. Not, oh, here this might be interesting. Object tag add attribute config. So apparently we propagate the child's name in there. We'll worry about that later. We'll figure that out when it breaks. That seems easy enough. Get at I. So the problem is we don't actually have a method yet to take a generic object, so we got to make one. We'll just say, yeah, sure, you can just attach plain old objects in there. I don't really like that. It'd be nice to have a different name for that. And as object. Because we want this to understand, hey, we're making a new, create an object tag. Li create object tag. What does that do? Oh, I guess you have to decorate it with object to say, hey, I'm an object, interpret me as an object. It's not the HTML tag object. It's I am an object, make me an object. The object goes here and the config goes here. So recursively descend into me and figure it out. Okay, so that's going to be different. Each one of these here is going to be wrapped up in some other way. We're going to have a config that'll come with it, which means we don't need this method unless we just have a append object, which will say child, and then we're going to JSON markup It's not quite right because we don't have an attribute object. We just have, or we only have an attribute object. I think that's right. And we're basically going to say, hey, here's this and here's this, so we can take an optional config. I still don't know what to pass for configs. We'll figure it out later. Okay. And now we can just straight up append this. Nope, not like that. Child tag. And then return. All right, back to where we started, and now we're going to say we're just going to append this as an object, which means I don't know how to render this. This is somebody else's problem to figure out. End object takes another argument. We'll just give it a null for now until we figure out what we do with configs. This is building a config with the key of the object's, the child's name. The child had a value, and the child has a name. Array formatter built a name as the index. So it's kind of like it says we should pass in name equals I. We'll just leave that for now and figure it out later. Okay, so that should build the body by iterating through each item and appending a new entry for each one. And it works in plain Java, which means it can compile down smaller if we don't have super dev mode turned on, and it'll work at all if you don't have super dev mode turned on. Let's make one more, and then we'll do the glue that makes these actually work. So let's make a list one or a set one? Let's start with a list one. Make it generic on, can we just say list of question mark? I don't think you can say that. You need to make that more specific. We'll just say list of object. It's not really correct, but it's close enough. So now can render is O instance of list. That's easy. And then the header for a list, let's look at what the array list was. For some reason, this was only attached to array list as opposed to everything. But we can return for the preview the whole array list. We don't know what the component type is. It's going to be a little weird that it says compound name, which is array list, with brackets after it. But we can give it the length for sure. So we can say it's a div with name, and the name is going to be its class. I guess we'll do the simple name. We probably should have done simple name for the other one too. And then we'll say its length. Its size, sorry. Arrays have size. Okay, so that seems pretty reasonable, and then iterating through is going to be more of the same. Object is not empty. And then body is going to be, again, a UL, or sorry, an OL. Let's make that a variable so we can append some junk to it. So we do a for I instead of a for each loop in Java, because at least for GWT2, it's more efficient to not create the iterator. In Jackal, it may not matter. I haven't spent too much time in Jackal figuring that out. Okay, and then we're going to do basically the same thing, so I'm just going to rip it off. Except now instead of an array like, we're just going to say object.getI. And then probably again, it has a name of I. Yep, same thing. This is actually indexing in and figuring it out. This invocation here will figure it out, so that way even if it's a linked list, and there is no backing array, we'll be able to figure out what that implementation should be doing. So we'll append all of our OLs to it, all of our LIs to it. We didn't actually make that an LI, did we? We should make that an LI. We should do that to the other one too. There we go. Now it's an LI. No, it's not. Append object. Now it's an LI? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we say append this DOM element, because we need a list item, and append the object inside the LI so that it renders it nicely. We should do the same thing over here. There we go. Okay, so now our OL has automatic LIs in it, and then each one has its contents, and we still don't know what to do with this name junk. Okay, so let's do the glue that sits between these. We need something that implements object formatter, so it's available to the browser in this way, and then it takes a bunch of object formatters, GUID object formatters. So we'll make some class, and I'm not even sure why this is an abstract class now. This should probably be an interface. We can fix that later. So we'll make a new Java class that is, I don't know, helper formatter. I did some bad naming decisions earlier, and now I'm paying for them. We'll go back and fix this. So object formatter is the real implementation. We need to implement those 3 methods. And then we need a public static void register, which is going to call object formatter.register new helper formatter. And then we're going to pass in each of our GUID object formatters here. We'll assign it when we use it. I like to have my fields, then my constructor, then my methods. And then we need to put these here. So there'll be a new Java object formatter and a new Java list formatter. There we go, assign that. And now we do the glue of, hey, which one you're going to render from. So for I in formatter list, that was an autocomplete for me there. I don't want to type, I'm a Java developer. We don't type real words. So if formatter.canRender object config, then do it. Otherwise, we continue, and we will return formatter.header, because we're in the header method, of object. And it's going to say, aha, but you can't actually render that. You have no idea. Yeah, I do know. I don't know well, but it already told me it can. So we're going to say, yes, this is okay because you said so. Try and generify, no, just disable it. We should handle some other header types first. So if js.is number. What do we got in here? We got is falsy and is truthy. We want to check if it's a Boolean. So we'll just do instance ofs, or type ofs. So type of object is Boolean. Do they have anything more efficient in here for these type of calls? We have to use type of instead of instance of because we want to make sure that it is, even if it doesn't belong to this window. So we got an as string. We'll do a check type. But I don't really want check types because those could fail. And there's somebody calling me. Let's see if we can tell them to go away or if I need to go do something. Doesn't look important because they're not here anymore. Okay, let's see. How did that check work, that type of check? We had a list of things. We had one more thing here. These are all check types, so I guess we just got to go through and check each one. String, Boolean, number, and then undefined. We've got a special check for undefined. We'll do that one first. No, we need to return a... What do we return for this to say if it's undefined? Format already did this for us. It's just returning the string undefined for preview. Can you return strings for that? Each template is encoded in a format based on JSON-ML. Each element is a list here. And a child can be an element, a string, or an object reference. But you can't just return raw strings, can you? If null is returned, it will be used. You can specify config, an object tag, and assign to an arbitrary object. The object will be passed here as a second parameter. But this doesn't say you can return strings. Did we actually return strings somewhere else in here? We return nulls. We return that. Why are we defining our own formatting for Booleans and stuff? If you return null, isn't going to use the default? The default format we use. Yeah, screw it. We're not doing this. If it's undefined or it is one of our basic primitives, it's not our problem. If undefined... No, if it's null even. We don't even care if it's undefined. No, that's not what I meant. There we go. If object is null or Boolean, we'll just do a type of once. Okay, so we've handled all the easy cases rather than stringing this stuff. Nulls and undefined are both handled here. By returning null, we say, you figured out, I don't care. And then we loop through and we say, anybody that can format that, go for it. And then finally we fail, saying, okay, I guess we couldn't format it after all. Okay, has body. Oh, is it has body or has children? Hang on. Has children? Oh, has body is the same as has children. Okay, fine, whatever. We're going to do the same thing here because no one's going to call has body if we have nothing here. We're going to look for a formatter to accept it. Yep, I still don't understand why we're doing this. Nobody's ever going to grab one of these and say, oh, yeah, I totally render strings. Absolutely. So why don't we just let it fail through here? Is it just a shortcut? Seems silly. Gonna do it anyway. We can always clean it up later. We may figure it out later that there's a good reason to do this kind of a thing. Then we're going to do the same loop here, except instead of returning that, so if can render. It looks as though if it returns null, it'll never call has children on you or has body. Return true if the object can be opened to more detail. It doesn't say it won't call you if you returned null last time. But maybe that's a safe assumption to make. If formatter can render, then we will use you as the authoritative as children check. And we won't check anybody else because you've already said no, go away. Okay. And then finally body, which is again just going to be the same glue crap. The actual get body thing was going to, if you can accept it, then you render it. If it's not an object, like a false, it returns empty, but that shouldn't have returned anything at all. Whatever. We're going to make that somebody else's problem. Can we actually return null from there? Is that safe? Return the expanded object version of the object to be displayed after it's open. Config same as the header function. The input is always in the header. The input is always the object to inspect. See below for the template format. I don't see how it's safe to return empty array. It doesn't seem to be safe to do that. We're going to return null for right now, and we'll deal with the repercussions of that bad decision when the time comes. Okay, so now we've got a helper format. We've got a little register call that any application can do to say, make it do good things. Let's make this a GUID application real quick, and then fire it up with something really simple, just to say, hey, can you try logging some junk? And then figure it out. Okay. Actually, well, we'll see. Let me see if I can build this real fast, and then I'm going to get some lunch. And then we'll split it up to separate projects. But just to say, hey, can we get this JsInterop junk working? Okay. Git Maven plugin. I just want to grab something quick that will make this work. We got some dependencies to grab here. We got some dependency management to grab here. Make sure we get the right version. Nope, not what I meant. Eventually, we won't want to do this because it will make it hard to make it compatible with Jackal. But for the time being, we can just do that. We can say git 210. We should change the group ID. Oh, why did it do that? I guess we'll make it a GUID app for the time being. We'll back that out later. And then add the build plugins. Okay. This is Vertispan, Chrome Dev Tool, JsInterop. We're going to make a module XML in source main. Just include everything in it. By virtue of being in this package, that's where it goes. It'll be all of JsInterop that we'll include. So we got Chrome Dev Tools, JSON ML, and we'll make a quick little app implements entry point. We didn't import Maven yet, or we didn't re-import Maven to grab that yet. Okay, and then we do our GWT, our formatter, helper formatter, which is our terrible name, just to say, okay, go gadget, thing, and then we'll do some quick logging. Global.console.log arrays.asList of a new hash map, which we did not build tooling for yet. We'll make a new array list, which is also empty. Won't matter because it will correctly be able to render that. Let's make the number 123.456 false. Those will box, but Java boxing turns them into a double, capital D double, and a capital B Boolean, which in GWT is the same as a number and a Boolean, respectively. And then let's just do a plain old array, like new. Let's do a short array, just to really screw with some of our types, make sure that works properly. 2, 4, 8, 16. And let's put some new lines in here because I occasionally like to be able to read my own code. So technically you can pass multiple things to this. We'll put a string in here next. Yeah, that should be okay. We've got an array list, which should render in a useful way. Let's put a second array list with arrays.asList. That way it's a different type of array. We'll get the collections array here, and we'll get the array list here. Yeah, let's see if that does anything. There's no way this is building the first go around. Oh, I forgot a HTML file, so of course we can't even run the thing. New file, public index.html, and that's going to be a, what do you do, HTML5? There we go. Yep, sure, don't care about viewport, don't care about edge. Make a script tag here. Oh, we can do a short name in the POM XML. Okay, now we need a script tag. You're unhappy because you didn't type what I asked you to. All right, what failed here? 5 compilation errors. Module has no entry points to find. I guess I should do that, huh? Let's copy a reference to the Java type. This is really atypical, development. How often do you make your own new entry point in a existing GWT project? This is more about how do we build a demo badly, because this should really be 3 separate modules, and when we get around to doing Jackal, it'll be necessary to do that. I'm guessing it's going to say, hey, you forgot to import Elemental next. Yep. I don't know what Elemental is. Yeah, Elemental. So let's put some inherits in here. Now we'll pick up core. Probably should format as pretty, but whatever. We'll just make it work. What did I do wrong there? Object formatter. JS overlay can only be declared in a native type. Oh, is this not inherently native? Really? Oh, native is false. Whoops, I goofed. So we need to say, hey, this isn't my interface. I'm just implementing it. I think we need to say that. So we don't want to do exports. We want to say this is somebody else's Java interface. JavaScript interface. We're just implementing it. I'm just following directions. I missed some. I forgot to say that the JSON ML thing was also going to be native. Yeah, all right, fine. is we're just wrapping an existing type and providing some type-safe hooks to only make certain kinds of arrays. So it's still an array when you get to JavaScript, but we're saying make it so that my Java developers cannot do things outside of this little simple setup. Oh, I need to make a bunch of that cannot be non-final nor native. Okay, so let's make these as final. I thought these could be implicitly final, but apparently. Nope, that's not the right order for Java. So the problem here is that these are going to get compiled into static methods because they're overlay, and you can't do that if they're non-final, because polymorphism could ruin everything. I think that's all of them. Yeah, looks good. Jackal should have given us the same kinds of failures. In fact, all of them. Okay. I'm going to go make a very quick lunch because I've been snacking all morning as I've had various other calls going on. You know what we should have done? We should not have tested this in Firefox because it's not going to do anything in Firefox. I think. Yeah, look at that. It doesn't do anything. It's just a bunch of objects as far as I can tell. I don't think we have the magic tool in here to say, hey, this should do the things that Chrome can do. So let's switch gears. Go to Chrome. Now first, we're going to run it one time with without this feature enabled. I'm not doing super dev mode yet because I want to make sure production JavaScript still works. Let's get the debugger going. Click console. Well, it says there's an array thing, and the array thing has stuff in it. There's an empty array, and there's a map, I guess, and this thing has some elements, I guess, in it. And if we look in those elements, we got 1, 2, 3, and then a bunch of numbers. Okay. These shorts are not going to come up properly. I just realized we're going to fix that, but we'll get to that in a bit. Let's try turning on the feature. So this is the next step you got to do to say, I am in my debugger. I'm going to go to my settings, preferences, console, enable custom formatters. And it didn't seem to do anything different. This is how it says it's supposed to work. So what did we do wrong? Enable custom formatters. The doc doesn't really say what else to do here. So we may have to go into the actual Chrome docs to say, how do you turn this thing on? Click the gear, go into settings, under console, check enable custom formatters. All right, next step, I guess, is to debug it and say, what should this be doing? Did anybody even call me? You know, for example, do we even hook this up properly, or did we skip the register call? Oh, it's all obfuscated. Well, that's going to make it hard to read, isn't it? Let's switch over to pretty. Do it one more time. All right, now it's vaguely readable. Let's make sure we got a formatter thing in here somewhere. Is it called register, or do you think it inlined it? No, it built it here. Goog window, global window, formatters. Let's make sure we actually get a formatter thing. It's an array. The element has a formatter list. Let's make sure that it actually has our expected fields on it. We've got has body. We've got body and header. So if we call this with header and say string, it's going to return null. Okay, so that's good. I don't suppose there's another switch I gotta flip or something to say, hey, I actually want you to render things the way I said to render them. Doesn't look like it. All right, so after we finish this, we'll step return. It should be assigned now to dev tools formatters, which seems like a funny key name for that. Let's double check that. Dev tools formatters. And then this here also said dev tools formatters. Why not dev tool formatters? Why not capitalize T? Okay. We're going to step return to init. We're going to do our console log now, which is going to pass in something here. I'm actually just going to grab this real quick and run it by hand. Up to that point. So data equals this. And then we'll say formatters. No, we don't have it there. Dev tools formatters sub 0 dot header of data null. Caught. Cannot find context with specified ID. Okay. Context with specified ID. And it did format it then. Okay, so that works. So we might just be using the context, the config wrong. It's interesting that it's going to try and do that. JavaScript object array. It doesn't know the proper type of that array list. That's confusing. And then it says, hey, you're an array, and your length is 4. And then can I expand it? No, it doesn't seem I can. It seems to think I can expand it. And now it's 8? Why is it growing? Why is it growing? Because it's trying to render it now. Because now it's using this and making an array. This is my formatter. This is my own formatter that I made. It's invoking this. It's not putting spaces between things. That's not ideal. We're class initializing the Boolean, whatever. Yep, fine. Hey, it did it! Why did it not do it before? It's a little weird how it's formatting this to say, hey, here is the arrays array list. No, it didn't do it. now I can't unhear the damn squeak. It's stuck in my head now. So I was playing with putting breakpoints in the hey, go render this thing. And it doesn't hit the breakpoints when I do the logging. It just logs it in the broken way. But this is interesting. If I put a breakpoint in this function here, it calls into the header function where it's going to render something, and I got the stack right here. I can call back to header because I actually called header. So this is kind of fun. Step return. I want to see what that returned. If I step return one more time, it steps into has body. Okay, so that's weird by itself. That's a little weird. The weirder part is that the object I now get is formatted as if by us. I can't expand it. And if I actually peek inside this local variable, because I can no longer use the debugger here to look at it. Object is just, it doesn't let me expand it. The expand button doesn't work. If I look at object, right, I can't see the contents of it, but I can see that it's an array with several elements, array list and size 6. But it renders as JavaScript object $0, length 4. What the fuck? Right? I mean, what is this? So it's rendering it. It's some part of it knows it's supposed to render this. My object is being sort of previewed as this. If I look at object sub 0, it's the string div. Object sub 1 is the attributes. Sub 2 is the string array list. But the whole thing is a JS array getting formatted. So something is saying, oh yeah, I'm the one who formats that. Hang on, it's a JavaScript object array. A Java array according to this whole system here. So first of all, it tells me there's a bug in here because I'm returning a Java array back to the JavaScript system. And second of all, something still broke. I'll work on that. Justin's sending me more music I should play instead. Alright, whatever. We'll figure that out later. Where am I going here? Screen 6. And then let's look at the code and see if we can find out where I'm returning the wrong kind of array, because that might be interfering. Somewhere I'm building a Java array, probably varargs, that's my hunch. I need to rebuild that into a plain JS array instead of varargs. I'm guessing like this thing, probably not. Let's go back and look, see if it actually is a real Java array. No, this is not a Java array, because otherwise it'd have some of these underscore castable type map properties. So why is it returning true when we say, are you an instance of Java array? Maybe we need a special check to say, hey, if you're a JavaScript array, don't do it, so it doesn't like try and recursively render itself and get screwed up. Let's try that real quick. I guess I could run the code server instead and just keep debugging that way. All right, let's look at our Chrome Dev Tool impl Java array formatter and special case JavaScript array. JavaScript object array. There we go. What if we did quit code server? Can I just debug that way? Because I can understand that this is my app, and I can debug it this way. Inspect, click. Yeah, it might work. I'm worried that the output will be different. Well, that's still garbage, obviously. It's now all, oh boy, we got 2 different domains it's pulling from here. All right, let's be consistent. And then let's get a breakpoint in here. I got source maps too, huh? Let's look for length equals for one of our magic strings to say, hey, go format this thing. Okay, now that's in Java. Good enough. And then we want to go to I guess we can just do it this way. The app and pause when we first start up so that I can grab this code. I want to turn source maps off. Sorry, I hate source maps because I just need a raw JavaScript here to get this figured out. Source maps, enable JavaScript source maps. Goodbye. There we go. Because now I can say, I can easily copy junk like this expression to build all the data that we're going to be logging here, which is this thing here. Because I want the whole sample data. Oh, come on. Don't be a jerk, Chrome. Your stupid scroll bars. All right, let's see if that works. All right, data is now a thing. And we do the formatter thing again. Like this. Interesting. It did not render it the same way as it did last time. It actually called it. Okay, so now we are no longer reformatting that on the way in. On the way out to say, hey, now it's a Java array, but it's not interpreting the JSON ML contents anymore as another thing. So that leads me to suspect that our format is actually wrong here in some way. What if we do it as, instead of header, do it as body? Okay, so it's building each of these. There's an li for each one, which will show the header. It'll be an object with a hash map, fine, whatever. I don't care about that one. This one is what I care about. An object with a single entry, and it is an object with a null config, which in turn has an array of nothing. Okay. But it isn't actually calling the body thing on it yet, recursively the way we were expecting. Let's see here. Is there any other thing we can do here, like step into the constructor? No, we don't want that. Let me just step into one of these other things here. That's a hash map. Here's an array list. Here's another array, a statically defined array. Here's an integer. We're going to build a bunch of integer objects. Okay, now we've got a bunch of integers here, and this is window, and that's the array. And we're going to construct array 0. That's a Java array, but it's not rendering it like a Java array here, so it's not passing through our formatter magic to get this to be right. We'll return that, step into the next thing, and say, hey, how do you make this into a as list? So it's going to turn into an array list. Step into, step over, it's going to construct it, it's going to fire it up better, and the result is this, but it did not give us a length on it either. So I'm beginning to wonder if it has to be a different window that we attach that to. So now we've assigned it in there too, just in case. That's going to make it easier for it to figure that out. This is probably a bad example to dig in and find that. I can't even remember the structure we put in here anymore. Yeah, now it did it. It's not expandable, that's fine. So it matters which window you attach it to. It's not the window that the object belonged to. No. It's not the window that the console belongs to. It's the window that you invoked the console log command from. Okay, so what if I just do data now? Oh boy. Are we stepping in automatically now? It's stepping in automatically now. We are in the break. We are in our call stack from the debugger. Just typing in the debugger causes breakpoints now. Here's an array list of size 6, and it's expandable. And it has a hash map. It has an array list of size 0. It has an array list of size 3. And there's integers inside of it. Boxed integers. So we should check for boxes, too, and unbox automatically. There's a double. There's a short array. The short array uncaught body should return an array. So body failed to return an array. That was part of the contract that we thought looked weird, but I just kind of went, whatever. I can't imagine that actually matters. And fun fact, it matters. All right, so let's see who implements body. It's who calls body. It's this thing here. So if you can't render, you must return a new object array. Actually, just do we need an empty thing here, because this is supposed to be able to have an empty, I guess. But there's not a valid empty thing. Let's say there's a JS method of public static native JSON markup empty. No, of. No, we're going to call it empty, but we're going to name it of. We could also make an overlay method called empty, which invokes of with nothing in it. I like this better, though. All right, and the body is not permitted to return null. If you ever were... Yeah, oh, hey, look at that. That is not going to help. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay, any other dumb mistakes? I know we got this white space here. We got to stick an extra little space in there. Apparently, it will just concatenate them into one big string. Was not expecting that. Wonder if we want to wrap each one in a div or something, or a span. We can experiment with that. Let's go back to body, make sure that the list implementation was correct. It is correct. All right, let's refresh. Oh, we forgot to hook up the, hey, register it to the actual console log. Let's just try this though real quick. We can't get a reference to data anymore. We can cheat it though. We can do the same thing as, no, we can't. We're not in the right breakpoint. Sorry, I'm going back and forth too fast. And I'm probably being too confusing. Let's just fix this formatter to do not just window, but what, self? How do you get a reference to the current window? To the current frame you're inside of? Does JS have a hook for this? I don't want goog.global. I want self. I guess we could do this for real and just make some JS properties for this. Oh, I'm in an interface. I can't do that there. It's kind of hard to reference the current self you're in. Maybe I can't make a private method. Nope, can't do that. Gonna need some kind of a helper to hold it. We'll just make an object called self. Right? What about a static? Static native? No. Can't put natives in an interface. Call it self-help or something. Oh, can you not make static natives in general? Invalid method. Oh, I need a return type. Let's just make it object. Don't really care. JS property. Native is already set to true. Name is sure self, and namespace, this is the tricky bit, is the magic string window, which doesn't mean the global window, it means the window you're actually operating in. And that did not recompile. Super dev mode didn't super. Let's go back to package. I don't know what I did wrong. I don't want to debug that part right now. Oops. Well, this time we crashed Chrome. All right, it's an array list size, which we can expand. We cannot. So something's still screwy, but we're getting there. At least we got the array list to print properly. Let's fix that array formatting, or the list formatting. We need a space before size. As children means is not empty. We make an OL. We'll try debugging that next, see what that's going to return back for us. Wait, did I do that right? Oh, I did that right, yeah. Okay, so we're in here. I'm going to try and get that data string again. This is the one from super dev mode. Here's the one from regular. I printed as array list size 6. Oh, look at that, it's expanding. It's got a hash map inside of it, an array list inside of it, another array list inside of it with 3 integers. Okay, so that's irritating. I don't know why these are styled like little gray styles instead of that nice style. I don't suppose I can inspect it and say, okay, well, why is the DOM this way? What did I do wrong? A short array is, oh, that is correct. So this time it decided not to give me shorts, but it gave me actual numbers. That's nice. Possibly because I'm iterating it as if it's a JS array. I like the helpful tooltip. 8. Details, 8. Short length. Do I get tooltips for some of these? Oh, I don't. That's too bad. Okay, so let's make hash map work. That's pretty cool. Now, it is still while I am building it myself, because that's actually just from invoking this. Let's see if the console.log itself hooked it up properly. Yeah, it doesn't expand now. I wonder if you put more than one thing in there, it breaks it. I'm sure this is not a very often used feature of the debugger. Well, yeah, let's split that command and just do one console at a time. let's make hash map work real quick. I say real quick, but it's actually going to not be quick at all. Java map formatter. And that will extend until we make it a super interface with object formatter. Autocomplete forming, because I don't care. Question mark, question mark. Implement methods. Great. It didn't know what a map was. Okay, you can do wildcards there. Great. Okay. And then I think the implementation we saw originally for map was to say, hey, just treat this as a collection of entries. And this uses this little handy here to say string maps, but we're going to get for free both kinds of entries. We're going to return an object that has a key and a value. I don't know why it's name. Let's see if we can do better than that. Okay, so the header is going to be what? Object.getClass .get simple name. I kind of want a two-string each one of these, but not right now, I guess. Right, that's not how we do this. We need to say it is a JSON markup of div, and then append object get class simple name, and then size equals object dot size. All right, and then we'll do the same. It is not empty. And then here we're going to make an OL again. I guess we want a UL here. There's an ordered a UL here. Really? Did I forget to make UL? Div span OL. Really? You can't do a UL? Is that out of spec, or is it just I forgot it? No, you can't do a UL? What if we try? Is it gonna really do that to us? I want a UL. Because I want unordered. I mean, come on, collections don't have order. Let's make a variable for that. The UL is going to have a bunch of OLs in it. So we're going to iterate through our objects entry set. They don't have order, so I can't use for And then we're going to append an object. No, we're going to append a li that will have an object appended to it. Yeah, thank you. Just import it. Import static method. Blech. We're going to append an object. It's going to be a JS property map of 2 pairs. We're going to call it key, which will be entry.getKey, and value, which will be entry.getValue. What's your problem here? Append object. Oh, I need a config object. I still don't know what they're for, but I need it. Okay. So I didn't actually create one of these. I gotta instantiate it in here. Boiled crap. There we go. Just going to continue for right now and just see what it comes up with. Array list of 6. Yeah, still can't expand it. Still can't expand it when it's directly logged. Wonder why that is. Anyway, there's our data. Now that I created it, hey, look, now I can do it, you weasel. So it's like it just 2 strings it just like that. We got a number on here, not so helpful. Our hash map doesn't have any entries yet. Our integers are still boxed and crap. We should make a formatter for that. And this array is now not a short array. Look at that. It's just a plain array with these elements in it. And it's drawing this extra stuff that we shouldn't have to read. So array list sub 6, which will be like data dot, oh boy, and now we're stuck inside the debugger because just typing triggers these breakpoints. You don't hit these breakpoints when it logs automatically. But when you start typing, it runs your breakpoints. And the little preview here is still showing the old version. So can I do a get at? What did I say that was? What's the position of that array? It's in 6. It's in 6? Oh, right. Hey, look at this. They're 1 indexed. You jerk. They should be 0 indexed. What are we writing, Python? I'm not getting paid, so I ain't writing Python. Okay, so why does it say that this is not a... this is not an array? What is wrong with short arrays now? It's not a short joke. Short's right here. Oop, this, it says, is wrong. If can be simplified. Well, thank you. And they can all be simplified into one giant thing. So is this false? Is the short array false now? Or did the compiler do something a little too clever to rewrite this short array into something that's no longer a short array? This 62 is probably the number for short array. So let's look for a 62 in here. No, 62 might be something else. Like serializable. These are the only 62s in the system. Oh, wait, hang on. Am I dumb? Are we actually looking at the elements that are for the... No, this is the right spot. 3 and 62. Castable type map for 3 and 62. And this element is 63. So why is that assignable to 62? What does 62 represent? Why are there these 2 keys, but nothing else with 62? It looks like this type here is a 62, 14 and 62. And this one is a 62, which is going to be this abstract hash map. So what else besides abstract hash map and entry set implement some interface? Abstract set doesn't implement it. Why did our int array pick it up? Our short array pick it up? As odds would have it, Justin and I are both tall people, so short jokes aren't funny coming from us. Here's our instance of check, 63. If instance of 63, return true. Hey, look at that. Hit it right away. No, I didn't hit it right away. So I need to trigger it by just hitting up arrow. There we go. Is O an instance of 62? Or 63? Should be yes. No. That's weird. You want to say that again? Because I didn't quite understand you the first time. Is this a... No, I don't want to speculate there yet. That's the wrong thing. That's a error. Possible side effect and debug evaluate. Oh, great. Yep, I know. And now everything is broken because I got a breakpoint in a thing that... There we go. That should work again. Okay, so here is our object that we're going to test, O, which is type of 63, but it implements 62 for some reason. And we're testing against 63. How would that have gotten wrong? Let's step into instance of and see what that does. All that does is say, first of all, you're not null, true, and can cast 63. So are you an instance of string? If so, we've got a special lookup we got to do for you. You're not a string. If you have a castable type map, do you have an entry for 62? And instead it has 63. What's going on there? It's almost like the JS is just buggy. Like the compiler just generated the wrong thing. There's our 62. Here's our 63 getting put in the castable type map of this. And a 64? That's the actual type ID. I think this looks right. 3 and 63. But here we have 3 and 62. Oh, you know what we did? I created data by copying and pasting from the last time I ran my JavaScript. So it's all crap. I need to actually copy this line instead, because the type IDs changed, as is their wont. I think it's one too many close parentheses. We better get rid of that breakpoint, because otherwise we're just going to hammer it. Because apparently, header gets called by the debugger itself automatically when you render through this. Okay, do we have a... Nope, we got to fix this here. Just say data equals... There we go. Missing... Oh, I did have the right number. There we go. Array list size 6. And there we go. It's a short array. Okay. And they're being rendered properly, but array list of integers are not being rendered properly. So we need to special case the box primitives. That way they render cleanly. Booleans, doubles are fine. Primitive arrays are fine. I guess we could try boxed arrays. Hash map is empty, so we'll put some junk in the hash map this time to actually get some contents in there. Let's make something complicated like object. Yep, thank you. I am hitting the autocomplete button. Go gadget, autocomplete. There we go. I was teaching a Python developer how to use IntelliJ this week. And there's just so much typing when you're used to Python. It's like, okay, every single thing you've got to type. Oh, I need to rename this method. Hang on, I only call it in this file, so there's only 4 places to change it. I'll just go back through and rewrite these other spots here. He's a great developer. I don't want to suggest he's anything other than stellar, but yeah. Okay, we're not going to put it map in itself because then you run into weird issues about its own hash code changing, but we could do things like foo, and then we could have the map as the value, so we could see, hey, what happens when you recursively render things? We can put in a, I don't know, arrays as list of hello, and make its value be another string. What doesn't it like about this? Put it on a collection. Yeah, okay. It just thinks I'm stupid. It might not be wrong, but I actually did that on purpose. Okay. All right. Let's make some boxed primitive formatter. We're just going to make it be object. And then we'll just have the can render do all the checks. So we don't care about void because the only valid void is a null. Meetings, you're not allowed to leave the thing on here to go to meetings. What is this? Only 2 people watching today? Come on. Oh, instance of... All right, we got to go through the whole litany of possible options again. So byte. Byte, character, short int, long, boolean, double, float. Actually, we don't need boolean or double because those will automatically be handled as JavaScript boolean and JavaScript number. So we need float. I think that's it. And in each of these cases, we're going to say the header should just be like what? A div of... These are all numbers, right? Byte's a number. Character's a number. Oh, IntelliJ got stuck. What's going on? That character class, you know, it's really, really complicated. There we go. Character is not a number. Okay, so we want to render a character as like a string anyway. What if we just two-string all of these? Is that allowed? There we go. Let's try that. Has true and is always false. Body is always empty. What do we do here? Extends. Why didn't it correct me there? That's weird. I rely on my dev tools to hit me when I do dumb things. Oh yeah, we gotta return false. That way you can say, oh, but if this is float, it's gonna be... Yeah, no, I don't care. Let's make it readable. We gotta read it a lot anyway, because I'm gonna screw something else up. Okay, we'll be running in just a moment. We're gonna need to grab this again probably, because there's gonna be a new type here. Probably should just dump that object. Ooh, custom formatter failed. Unable to find context with specified ID. And now we've lost our has body little ticker here in front of us. Okay. Let's get a breakpoint on our console log. Or just copy it. We don't even need a breakpoint. Oh, we do need it. Because we need to run it inside of the window context. Oh, it didn't error this time. Is it a timing thing? Nope, I did it at the wrong time. I have to do it while I'm paused here. Okay, there's my array list. It's got junk in it. Shorts are all short. Ints are still boxed crap. Oh, because we never registered it. So it garbage collected it. It pruned it automatically. So we have to say, here is another kind of formatter you will deal with. These are all final, so we can do them up front. That new. Oh, that is not what I meant. Why would you autocomplete like that? Okay. And then very late, eventually, we're going to need an object formatter, which will give us some kind of a, hey, I have fields, I guess, or something like that. We're going to need to copy that again. You know, we should just modify the app to just dump the data into some global field. There we go. That'll improve future debugging, so we'll go with that. Yep, don't need a breakpoint anymore, because now we're going to get data attached where we can see it. Still won't expand. Cannot find context with specified ID. What does that mean? Now if I do it like this, it renders with... Oh, it's not expanding now. What on earth? I wonder if there's somewhere else you've got to get this hooked up to get those body methods working. Nope, it's not going to do that. It's got to be the has body because it hasn't actually rendered it yet. It's not going to recursively do it until we get the has body. There we go. And now we've got this object that's getting passed in that now we can expand and see, hey, there's a hash map there. It's got 2 entries. Element UL is not allowed. Yeah, so they just don't allow it. You guys are jerks. So what do you do? Just put a bunch of divs, or do they want tables? Well, that'll do it. That'll break the code right away there. So let's go to the map formatter, back that out, and just do a bunch of divs instead. Who needs semantic types anyway? I mean, semantic elements. There's supposed to be this whole thing of, oh, you should use an article, you should use a section, you should use a table. Because you got tabular data, so of course you should stick a table in there, right? Initialize modules has body in it. Huh, so it actually caught the call stack there. It's so weird because now you've got that's who is being called. Can we reach out to say, hey, who actually called me in this case? Get the stack trace out of it. Eval has body init. It's just directly from init. Debuggers are weird, man. Okay, what'd you get me? We got an array list of size 6 that I still cannot expand. We are trying to render an integer of length 256. That defies belief. Obligatory attribute object isn't specified. This is getting real confused. Let's turn that breakpoint off. Don't put breakpoints inside your debugging code while you're debugging. Oh, I didn't assign it. Did it throw while it was trying to? Or maybe I threw while I was trying to render. Nope, something still broke here. Let's get the breakpoint in there and see if we can catch it this time. So this is working. Here's an object. I don't want it as an object, though. I want it as a... I put the whole hash map in. Oh, right, because we put the map in as the value. The value is the map. So it's recursive. That's what it's supposed to be. And then here should be an array list for the key, which is weird, but okay. And then the value is the string foo. Okay, so that's working. We still got this off by 1 error. Our shorts are all correct. And our array list is now object of object. It called toString on the JavaScript object and not on the integer. Okay. Take a look here. Find that header. for our integer case. Nope, that's a collection of some kind. Don't really care what. That's going to cast the object and call $header on it. So something's getting statified there. A div of hash map junk, probably just trying to initialize enough hash map stuff to make it work. Header instance, another cast. It's like it partially statified these things. Must have missed it. Let's try it again. We get the length because this is the array version. We're going to make a div that's going to contain toString of object. Grab that one. And as I expand this, I should hit my breakpoints here, like right there. There we go. Object is an integer, but object has a toString on it. This is a boxed integer. I can't expand it to see what's inside of it anymore. The debugger doesn't work anymore because I just broke it. Okay, so what about something like object.castable_type_map? There we go. So it has a castable type map, so we should be able to tell if toString is legal to call on it. Let's go look at the implementation of toString. Yeah, all right, we need to stop all these array garbage because that's expensive. If it's an array, it's not an array. Then we're going to call object.toString. So integer, does integer have a toString? It does not. Java lang integer doesn't have a toString. Was the compiler not able to prove that it was calling it on an integer at this point? What happened here? The compiler just decided it didn't need toString, because object is an integer. Get class says, I'm an integer. Here's the integer constructor. It has a value of, it has an equals and a hash code, but it has no toString. What was that toString that we were trying to do? This almost feels like a compiler bug. If object type marker equal type marker function, if it is an array and it's got that, otherwise it should have a toString. toString sub 0 is like a static string dot. Yeah, let's see where that's defined. No, it's a number. It knows it's a number. It has var number. Number is undefined. Oh, the number is the hash code. It's just going to turn the number into a string of some kind. No, sorry. It's going to made it into hex. That's what it is. So let's look real quick at object.java inside of GWT. No, that's not what I meant. I want the actual file called object.java. There we go, all places. So the toString calls this. So if nothing else, we should have filled our way up to this to do a class getName at and then the hex string. And the hex string is what's going to make our integer thingy. I'm sorry, our number field. And it's just going to end up inlining that. Someone else calls object array is array. And then it checks this. So let's look around for like a general string dot. We're seeing if there's some general utility in string or in objects. Compare deep equals equal require non null toString. Nope, that just uses this null default string thing. Look who's yelling at me. Ah. Not important right now. Okay, so somewhere else instead of GWT, there's going to be a thing that's going to do our stringing stuff. I'm just not having I'm not able to remember right now where it is. So let's pull up GWT source itself and look for arrays.isArray or array.isArray and see who happens to call this. All right, this is the same JavaScript code here we can see in this pop-up. Is it's saying, hey, if you're an instance of, oh, but it's doing number checks here. It's saying, hey, if you're a double, we're going to call your actual, what? This implementation knows what it's supposed to do. It has just short-circuited all of these other examples here. I wonder if it didn't understand it was boxing. Let's look for how this actually gets built. See, here's a cast for isArray. Here's a runtime that will do a toString. We can kill that code, by the way, because we don't support that version of Java anymore. I mean, IE anymore. So it's probably something called cast isArray, or this array helper isArray. We'll look for cast isArray or array isArray. But we don't want to look all over the universe like this. We just want to look just in our own, in the GWT emulation, the GWT runtime. This is pretty close. I just can't tell if that's actually it. If it has a type marker, then we want to call object toString. Yep, that would be good. And then fall back to, sorry, if you don't have a type marker, we just fail you. No, this is an and. toString for an object is if it's an array and it has a type marker, then call object toString on it, because it's a JavaScript array and it's a Java class at the same time, so you want to toString the underlying thing. The problem is we've got a boxed integer here that's going through this function, runtime toString. And it should never have done that. It should never have gotten to this point. Something earlier should have said, hey, you're not a string. Go find something else to test you. What about string.java? Like a value of function or something? Yeah, we got a bunch of boxed value ofs. We got a value of object here that says if not null, then call the underlying toString. Let's try this. Let's see if this one figures it out. Because this is definitely a compiler bug, but I think it's a pretty specific bug. We should look around for toString bugs in the compiler, see if we can come back and fix this. Be kind of a fun one, I think. But I think it's very specific to this use case. Okay, so let's find our primitive formatter and change it instead to be, what do you say, string.value of object. Just about done. It blew up in a new way. That's not ideal. Let's delete this. And let's look for the header call, so we can put a breakpoint in here and say, hey, what's going on? Actually, let's type out the word data first. Then I can just hit enter. All right. And let's see if we can get a breakpoint here when we poke it. Oh, no, it is not expanding at all anymore. It is unhappy with me now. Data is not defined. These debugger bugs are so weird. All right, it doesn't actually matter what this is here. Why are you giving me this useless autocomplete? Apparently this is an integer array, which is false. Custom formatter failed. Uncaught obligatory attribute object isn't specified. Boy, I wish that they would come with a trace. So I guess we're stuck inside the context of the window now. So now let's hit enter, reinstate the breakpoint, and then expand. There we go. Now we're expanding it. We can take a look at, hey, here's a hash map. That's fine. Here's a empty array list. Here's an array list with numbers in it. And they're still objects. So Gwit's own toString isn't working. Have we seen a bug like this before? Seems familiar to me. I bet we can just typecast it to say, here's what I want to do. I don't see anything obviously wrong here. What's this about? Character at toString results in error compile. It's not emulated. All right, we don't care. Some improvements to how to debug this. We really don't care anymore. A lot of that is very dead. I don't... Okay, that is just that's an old one, I know. Yeah, no, I don't see anything that obviously that looks like the same bug. Unless we fixed it? String value of gives class cast exception. Oh. Okay, this doesn't matter. It's not related. Um... Hey, New Duck. Thanks for joining us. All right, I can't figure that out right now. At least I can't figure out where else we had. This looks similar. Here we no, that's 2005. That's 2015. So that's not it either. Okay, well, we can just brute force this whatever's going on here by saying, "Hey, you're a number. We're gonna force it to call your toString because the compiler is definitely trying to get clever and failing. Let's let's just get let's just move this in here. JsInterop with Java. Yeah, are you familiar with GWT or Jackal? Okay, so GWT is a tool made by Google back in like 2005, and then they open sourced it, and then they handed control off to the community to figure it out for ourselves. And it is it's a compiler that turns Java into JavaScript. Rather efficient JavaScript because it doesn't have to worry about types in JavaScript that might not really make sense. It's able to say, oh, well, I know exactly what this is going to be when I compile it, so I can rebuild this in all kinds of fun ways. So we've got some pretty JavaScript here, readable stuff. And the toy we're playing with right now is that Chrome has a debugging extension where you can add new ways to format your data. And so I'm trying to, without touching actual JavaScript, here's an example of how you would do it in raw JavaScript. Trying to do a little bit of introspection in Java, compile that introspection into JavaScript, and have it debug our objects. And the only JavaScript we had to write was to say, this is the contract that JavaScript will insist on. This is called JsInterop. These annotations are. And by implementing those things, and then by actually setting this, hey, here's your formatter dev tools that you should use, we're able to hook in and say, okay, now we implement header, and we implement it here, and we do some quick tests to make sure you're not trying to print out a primitive of some kind. And if you're trying to print an actual Java object, we can go through and figure out what the Java. Yeah, well, it's not well used, and you get weird errors from it. So this is a spec document from a couple Googlers back in 2016. I'll put it in the chat in case anyone wants to grab it. So that's the spec written by decently big names in JavaScript. It made it into the browser, and there's a couple different implementations they have as examples of how to do that. And then they go through and they document the API. Unfortunately, they don't document it well. For example, this body is never permitted to return null. It has to return empty, even though empty isn't actually a valid response. It just tests it for empty or something. It's a little weird to me. And then we've got this this one here is supposed to return null if it doesn't make sense to have it do anything. But you assign a whole array of these formatters. That's how this is meant to work. But if the first one returns null, it doesn't specify that it will call a later one. And we haven't tested that yet, because we could simplify our code if it will automatically call a later one. So So we've got just a single dispatcher that loops through our other implementations to find something that will satisfy it. Anyway, we seem to have hit a compiler bug, which, it's never the compiler. Whatever tool you're working with, it's never the compiler. But for some reason, our compiler is trying to render a number using the JavaScript object toString. And I don't know if you know this, but JavaScript's got this helpful toString, which is, oh, right, you need parentheses. It just prints out the word object, because, one is great, and the other one is twice as good, obviously, if you print the word object twice. Anyway, in order to emulate Java primitives correctly, especially boxed primitives, they get put into objects, and the objects have to have their own type information attached. So you can say, hey, are you an instance of a double or are you an instance of an integer? And it can keep track of that. And what that means is that our particular object here is getting an object log line instead of the number value. So I'm trying to figure that out. So you're writing Java, and your Java is simple enough that it's never going to do things that browsers aren't permitted to do, like network I/O or talking to the file system, because there's no magic here. It's just transpiling to JavaScript. So the underlying features that a browser has are all we have to work with. We have no threads, so we don't need synchronization. We can emulate things like concurrent hash map, but they won't actually allow you to do real concurrency. Anyway, so you have to sort of limit your problem to things like that, but you can then do things like build into the browser's own options for talking about I/O. That always has to be asynchronous. And then once you've got those things basically worked out, just about any Java that makes sense can compile, except for whatever we've got going on here. Still got to work this out. I'm afraid I have to step away in just a few minutes, but if you want to talk about what you're working on, I wouldn't mind at least offering some commentary. The code. I don't actually care about the business use case most of the time, unless it's an actual interesting, business project. So let's try actually uncasting each one of these and then say, hey, now it's a string. Like value of this as a byte. Can I do that? Are you going to understand that? Yes, it seems to. All right, so can you be more specific, or long gets weird too, by the way, because browsers, while they have big int, it's not actually a 64-bit int. It is arbitrary precision. Big int is relatively recent. We are using the GWT compiler. I didn't explain this before. But Jackal is a new project, J2CL, Java 2 Closure, which is a much lighter weight compiler. It can compile any one Java file into JavaScript, but then you run the Closure compiler, which is a big, heavy JavaScript compiler, also made by Google. And it will optimize that very heavily, in fact. Framework for putting websites into desktop apps, but using system-installed browsers, Node.js. So rather than bundling it, you're just assuming whatever versions they've got will make sense. Is that the basic idea? It's not opening. If I click, no, I don't want that. I just want, there we go. Data is not defined, so top.data. We're hitting other debugger bugs while we do this, which is really irritating. All right, so now we see our Java structure. I've got this data object, which is an array list of size 6. Now it prints that out. The hash map, it shouldn't print object here. It should have key value as its things here, maybe like arrow from foo to this. And we put the map inside of the map. That way we could see it render circularly. And that works. And then the second key is an array list for the key, and the value is the string foo. And here we've got ints. Okay, so that cast was what was necessary. So you're running a server, basically, and then they just hit localhost, or do you have some kind of a way to strip off the Chrome around the browser, like the address bar and the bookmarks, things like that? sounds like Node.js. Okay, so Node.js for the server in all likelihood. But are you supporting arbitrary browsers? Are shorts work? Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so you've got some API into Firefox, Chrome, Edge, whatever it happens to be, Safari, to understand how it wants its other stuff to be stripped off. Do you do any kind of sandboxing to say, hey, make sure you only go to this website? If somebody accidentally puts a link for some other website, we don't want you to wander off from that? Or is it really just, hey, this thing, but in kiosk mode? Like you can do, oh, where's the button? There's a full screen button here. 12? No, that just makes my debugger appear and disappear. I forget what the button is. Oh, sure. Okay. So you're still working your way through that. Gotcha. That makes sense. So this got stuck and broken, and now we're getting errors from the formatter, but it doesn't actually log our stack traces, so we have no idea what broke. And now that is staying broken. When you log it by itself, it's staying broken. When you print it like this, now we've lost the arrow again. So what happened? Remote debugging API. Okay. I'd love to hear more about that. Unfortunately, I have to run to grab a kid at a bus stop. It's going to be a question of, yep, I got to go right now, in fact. Yeah, I don't know if you stream, but I'd watch your stuff later on to see if you talk about this at all. IPC just sounds like you got to be a little scared about keeping the user on that page in a kiosk mode, and then they can't accidentally wander to some other page. Or an attacker shows up and says, hey, there's an easy way to navigate to another page, and now I can do arbitrary inter-process communication, or write to memory, or just row hammer and get your keys out or something like that. Yeah, for sure. I'd take a look anyway. If you just want to paste it here. I got to go, I'm afraid. I will be back on this next week on Wednesday, and Justin will be streaming on Friday, continuing probably his live grid stuff, although he got to a pretty successful point last Friday. For 1 million items or 10 million items scrolling pretty quickly. Anyway, I gotta run. Thanks, everybody, and I'll be back next week.